This is Robert Phoenix, and welcome to the Astro Weather. All right. Greetings. Greetings, one and all. We are here. We are gathered. We are assembled to take in the astrological elements that make up our inner and outer sky. And of course, I am joined today by none other than the astrological weather cat. There she is. She's still kind of a feral cat. It's really interesting. Anytime anybody comes into the house, she's like off in a corner somewhere trying to figure out who they are, sizing them up. Isn't that right, Peaches? You are a protector. That's who you are. That's right. Go get some of those sun rays. Get a little of that catnip over there too while you're at it. That's like a little early morning catnip. You know what I'm saying? How is everybody? How are you doing? Long travel day yesterday. Went to the old cardiologist and had my EKG. Playing that game now. It's an interesting experience to be a part of this this part of the evolutionary journey. Anyway, I'll skip you the gory details. But I did manage to have a very nice Szechuan dinner last night. Really weird, though. The only people in the restaurant. It's a very strange feeling when you're the only people. And the food was good. It was like there was no reason why I shouldn't have had more people. It's just the way it was. Anyway, let's do a quick little roll call, see who's here, and we'll get into the weather. We got DJ MC, the new next. Thumbnail looks like me during a typical day at corporate, just picking away. There you go. Debisu. I saw a picture of Debisu on Facebook with her bicycle. That was kind of cool. That was a cool picture. Wish I had one of these. I like the Ravens. So clever, inquisitive, fast learners. I need to keep the state minions away. Yeah, exactly. Let's see. California Contrarian. I'm doing well. Thanks, KK. We are back on the ascendancy. Let's put it that way. We're working back towards some degree of normalcy, but ultimately I want to get better than normal. So, but thank you for asking, and I appreciate the kind words about Sunday night. Dusty Logan, well, we miss you being here too. We got the time change. I don't know if you guys go through that down in Australia. Sue, you're down there too. Hi, Sue. Good to see you. Ole Kobe, what's up? Finca Felice, Cheney is dead. Rest in peace in hell. Yeah, isn't this also the anniversary of Q? I think it might be. Although I thought Q was an October appearance. But that's what I've heard on the internet. Yes, Super Show wants to say thank you. Catherine Rosen, what's up, Catherine? I'm feeling better. I mean, I've lost a bunch of weight. That's good. Now my next step is to just, I wasn't enjoying going to the gym. Normally I like going to the gym, but I wasn't enjoying going to the gym. And I don't know. I think it was maybe the gym vibe, but I wasn't digging it anymore. So now I'm at this place where Do I want to go back? Because I just needed to put everything on hold. Do I want to go back to the gym? Or do I want to create my own gym in my home? I'm leaning towards the latter versus the former because I could save money that way as well. And I would just have to rearrange one of my rooms. Anyway, thanks for asking, Catherine. Do I know about Crowzilla? I do not know about Crowzilla. Let's see. Barbara Boots is here. Trees Garden, Star Chat. What's up, Teresa? Yes, Texans, go vote. Important props on the ballot. Janine's here. Hi, Janine. Scrubbies with the name check. Hi, Tamara. Good to see you. There's Rafi. Hi, Rafi. What's up, Stephanie Hunter? Tom Jordan in the house. What's going on, Tom? Zerlith, Eternal, the lovely and talented one, listening and driving. Lena Winkler is here. Lisa Amwet. There's my guy, Mark. Yes, we got an all-star crew today. Must be cold. It is cold, KK, for sure. Amy V is with us. What's up, Amy V? Bo is here. Hey, Bo. Got a Bo side and Kristen Foos. Door at the door. Feral's what we all should be in a wild state, especially after escape from captivity or domestication. She's always kind of maintained that. She's always maintained a little bit of that wild side, which I do appreciate. Let's see. Ratchet Boo, what's up? Michelle LePage checking in from Canada. Hi, Michelle. We got Moon Villain. Frank Henneke. Hi, Frank. Greetings to you. Ben is here. Daylight savings is evil. I just make it one time. My Rose in the house. Checking in. TB tripped over a floor full of big Legos last night. Feeling grateful I can still play the guitar. Every parent's nightmare. Yeah, the Sunday night show. Thanks, Rafi. It helped me get focused. Last week's shows helped me get focused. A little criticism isn't always bad. After a decade of gym, I hate the vibes there now. Yeah, I kind of feel a little similar. I kind of feel somewhat similar. So I think the plan is for me to turn one of my rooms into just a place where I can work out. So I'm with you there. Esperanza Vance, she knows all about the Crowzilla. Aaron L is here. Soul Traveler. Speaking of crows, we got Green Eyed Crow and the great Sun Tzu. Sandra Jack Shaw. How would I describe Sandra Jack Shaw? She's a force of nature. Doug Rowe, no more daylight savings time. I know, right? Lost production and consumption twice a year. Just change it. Mamdani going to win NYC. It looks like should be. So I have heard that if Mamdani wins, he will arrest Bibi Netanyahu when Netanyahu comes to New York. We'll see. We'll see if that's true. Let's see who else we have. Michelle LePage, Valeria Rubens. Hi, Valeria. Sharon Lewis. Happy full moon day. There we go. I think we're up to speed. That criticizer on YT comments is back again, trolling everyone who compliments Robert. Oh. Well, let him troll. Let him troll away. I got what I needed out of the exchange. All right, let's get into the weather, shall we? Oh, before I do, we got to pay tribute to Silver Botanicals. Let me get rid of that, of course, because that is a glitch, which StreamYard has still not figured out. There we go. And we're back now. Let me just give you a brief little rundown of, I like it better this way. Well, I guess that's all right. How about this way? There we go. Now you just get to see the whole thing. Okay, let's talk about Silver Botanicals. They are a relatively new sponsor. You got 7 days to get the 11th house Astro Weather bundle right there. And I used some of the silver foot shield yesterday on, not that I had any kind of funk, but I used it on my shins yesterday because I think Peachy was like scratching my shins. And so it was irritating, right? And so I hit it with the foot guard or the foot shield. It felt great. It felt great. It was like, oh my God. I don't have to scratch where she scratched me. Not because she was angry or anything, but because that's what cats do, right? And it's like, oh, this feels really cool and good on my skin. So you can play with this stuff and use it for different applications. Like, again, for instance, I use the Silver Shield sanitizer for my countertops. It's great. Totally great. It works just as well as, was it Next Generation or whatever, the eco-friendly sanitizer that you can buy from Whole Foods, works just as well. And it does what it's supposed to do, which is sanitize your, whatever it is it's coming in contact with. And because of how it's composed, it actually cleans as well. So I use it for my household. So it's great. The oral care, I swish that after I brush my teeth. So I've used all this stuff, and gotta say, high quality products. Anyway, you have until the 11th to get this bundle. It's you're saving $20, and you get free shipping on it. All you got to do is check in on that link, and then if you wanted to get, say, the C serum or something like that, just go in there, and when you check out Astro-Weather, all caps, that's your code to get 10% off anything that you get from our friends at Silver Botanicals. So there you go. I call them BioSilver, but Silver Botanicals is really their counter name, right? Their shelf name. And they are distributed to certain stores. They have distribution across the country. So even though this is a Main Street business, they get it out to people all across the lower 48 for sure. All right, let's get into the weather, and we'll come back and we'll do the start of the day. So here we go. And now it's blank again. Why is it blank? Here we go. All right. Let's do the weather. Okay, here we go. So yeah, we got a full moon in action. And it's just at the edge of Aries. Just at the edge of Aries. So the moon is waxing, right? So tomorrow night we will be in the fullest of the fullness tomorrow night. So we're still in that hot Aries moon, and we have this Chiron conjunction. The word I would use for this is prickly. This is a prickly conjunction. And I think there's a potential for a lot of miscommunication. A lot of miscommunication. Um, because when you get into the square with Jupiter and the moon, anytime you get a Jupiter square, which we've talked about, it's sort of like you can be extremely complementary. Jupiter Venus square kind of you can be overindulgent with Jupiter squares. And Venus is in what they call the Via Combusto, which is that phase between 24 Libra and I think 13 Scorpio, where the whole idea is that there's this burning off of the dross of relationship, right? So this T square, even though there's an overenthusiasm of feeling, there's an overenthusiasm of wanting to be fair, an overenthusiasm of being harmonic, right? And even with the moon, it's like, well, let's say you had a friend who was depressed and you did everything in your power to cheer your friend up. Today is one of those days where it may not go that well, right? Your friend may take exception over the fact that you're attempting to raise their spirits or tell them how much better their life is than somebody else, or how much worse their life could be. Not a great strategy today. Just saying, right? Because that Moon Chiron conjunction is very prickly, and you actually may get, even if you're complimentary, you may hit something that could be extremely vulnerable for that person, because they'll realize how much of the thing that you're talking about they don't have and they're not experiencing. So that could be problematic. I would, when the moon moves into Taurus, we're having a very different discussion about like what it's doing in the sky. We'll talk about that tomorrow, because now we're in the opposition to the sun and we're very into indulgence, right? Like the Taurus full moon is all, it's exalted in Taurus, so it's indulgent. And it's, the whole calendar is fucked up and weird. Like we went from Halloween here is bizarre, by the way. Like there are not a lot of neighborhoods in Kerrville to trick or treat in. Okay, because it's 20,000 people. It's still pretty rural in its own way. So when you have density of population, it's kind of uncommon. So I live in one of these old developments from, I think, like the late 70s, early 80s. So it's pretty densely populated. People drive here to fucking trick or treat. I mean, it was like an invasion. And some of the costumes were so over the top. And we're just trying to get out and go have dinner on Friday night. And it was like I had to dodge trick or treaters. And they do this thing. I'm sure they do it in your area as well. I'd never seen it before. But people will walk around. Well, they won't even walk. They'll be in like the trunk of a car with the trunk open, or an SUV, and the back is open, and they sit in the back, and they just drive and drop the kids. The kids will walk 3 or 4 houses, and they get back in, and they drive again. I had never seen that before. That's brand new. Anyway, the reason I'm talking about this is because now all of a sudden people are putting up their Christmas decorations. And it's like, whoa, 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 hold on a second now. Isn't there Thanksgiving somewhere along the way here? Like, what is going on? And I'm bringing this up because the Taurus moon wants tribute, right? It wants tribute. It wants this seasonal offering, which is, for the most part, I would say, gustatory. And what are we? We're 3 weeks away. We're 3 weeks away from Thanksgiving, which puts it kind of on the new moon. Just let's see, 2.5 weeks being the moon. So first quarter moon, right? So I would say that tomorrow with the full moon, people are out shopping heavily. I think if we're going to see some issues or challenges with EBT and the SNAP stuff, I think it shows up on the full moon. Food banks, maybe they have a week and a half worth of food in the cupboard, and they're trying to replenish everything. But I think we might see the effects of. I talked about this last week. We might see the effects of this. Mars is now in Sagittarius, so that's good. Not that it being in Scorpio was bad. Mars is exalted in Scorpio, right? So it's not really exalted, but its former rulership is Scorpio. But we like Mars and Sag because Mars is a fire planet and Sag is a fire sign. So we're fired up today. And we've got that Mars-Mercury conjunction. And there's a lot of rhetoric in the air, right? There's a lot of rhetoric. There's a lot of restlessness. There's a lot of, wanting to take some action. Now, Mars is in exact opposition with Uranus. So throw some restlessness in there. And people, I think, are reaching this oversaturation point of bullshit and diarrhea, right? But that's kind of where we are. It's sort of like how a sponge gets too full of water and you can't do anything with it. You have to wring it out. We'll go with kind of a defecatory version of that because the world is just filled to the brim with bullshit right now. And you'd have to be either on drugs or so deeply in denial that you're like the bubble boy, and it's all just bouncing off of you. Who knows? Maybe you have some profound and deep connection with Jesus and divine dispensation, and none of it matters at all. And God bless you if that's the case, right? But not everybody has that, and even so-called people of faith are starting to see the cracks in the things that they believe in. And I talked about it on Sunday night. And this Mars-Uranus opposition is heretical, absolutely heretical. And it's not necessarily bad. It's like I've always been heretical. I can't really help it. I was born that way. But today is not a day to stand on ceremony or tradition, right? Mars is still coming out of that trine with Jupiter, and we're getting ready to have Jupiter go retrograde in Cancer as well. That does not bode well for the food supplies, by the way, with the Jupiter Cancer retrograde. But people are definitely in mobilization mode. I was in the store the other day. What was it? Saturday? Saturday? There were a lot of people in the store buying a lot of stuff. So if you're a food retailer, you love a good crisis. It's good. It's really good for business. Really, really good for business. So today, as we just kind of poke our heads into Sagittarius with Mars and Mercury, I think it's a very interesting time to explore what your belief systems are all about. And are they valid and true? last night on the way home, I was listening to this woman who's a Mormon scholar, and I spent about an hour and 20 minutes listening to her just absolutely rip Joseph Smith and the Mormon story to shreds. I mean, that was a perfect interlude for my journey, and especially getting beneath the skin of how this whole thing with Mormonism started up. And I mean, this woman she was granular, wasn't like some broad sweeping generalization. And she'd been studying Joseph Smith and Mormonism since 1960, when she was 18 years old. And she's still around, and she's still, bright as a bulb and able to pull out names and dates. And my God, what a great conversation that was. And this is what happens with a Mars-Mercury conjunction. Nothing less than the truth will be satisfactory. And any effort to bury it, deny it, whether it's in yourself or out in the world, is going to be insufficient. Now, what's interesting is, how is this going to affect Trump? Because, Mars moves fairly slow, but 20 degrees from now, he's got Mars on his moon and opposing his sun. I see scandal coming for Trump. I see scandal coming for Trump in the next 3 weeks. And I've had this overriding sense that things are not going to go well for the Trump family. What do I mean by that? As much as they've been celebrated in recent months since his victory last November, it feels to me like there's going to be a public backlash against the Trump family in general. And I'm not saying this out of any malice. I can just feel it. I can feel it coming. And it won't be from the usual suspects. It won't be just from the quote unquote, woke left. There is a fracture and a growing dissatisfaction within the Republican and conservative party. And you're going to see more of this, right? And I went over this on Sunday night. When you have essentially, whatever you think of these people, when you have Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, and Nick Fuentes more or less all on the same page, okay? These are three people, when you add up their cumulative audiences, and there's some crossover between the three, but not all, there's probably about a 4 to 5 million person cum in their audiences. And their messages are ricocheting, off of one another. And we're in a hardcore free speech mode right now with the Mars-Mercury conjunction. This is the things that will be said during this time that we're in are going to change the course of history. I'm telling you right now. They're going to change the course of history, because the trickle-down effect is substantial. And the reason why I can say that with conviction is that I had a discussion with my son the other day, and it had nothing to do with politics, but his response in and of itself was political. And it was political in a way where it was like, oh, that's interesting. Some would say that's kind of based even, right? And so when my son starts to talk about things that are quote unquote based, there's a change in the weather. And remember that Mars is going to conjunct Pluto in Sag, which is in the chart of Gen Z. It's right there. Right now, this is where Pluto was at 0 degrees in 1996. Here comes Mars, Mercury sweeping in, conjuncting their Pluto. Remember, a lot of them have either Uranus in Aquarius, along with Neptune in Aquarius, or Uranus and Pisces with Neptune in Aquarius. And here we have Pluto. Again, this is transgenerational. Pluto's coming in, and that first wave of Gen Z, Pluto is hitting their natal Uranus. So it's the radicalization of Gen Z. Pallas is there and has been for a while, and it is essentially establishing the patterns of what's going on in their lives and moving forward. So there's Gen Z is seeing that their chances for home ownership and a place where things have more of a sense of normalcy is not on the table. I mean, this is Pallas looking into the future, and it's hitting their outer planets. So we're about to witness an eruption with Gen Z. Now, we've seen this already in countries in other parts of the world. Essentially, Nepal, which may or may not have been another state-sponsored coup, we don't know, but it was run by Gen Zers. You go back and you look at what was happening in Hong Kong just before COVID swept through there, and they had all these young people. Those were all Gen Z kids. They were like 20, 21 years old, 18, 19, 20, right? And they're all the ones with the umbrellas, and they were trying to, lead this revolution. Again, how much that was sheep dipped, we'll find out, right? Well, we won't find out, but I think anytime you see a coup, you have to just begin to think some of it is sheep dipped. The sun is hanging out here almost by itself, almost in singleton territory. Wow, it's like butt ass naked in Scorpio. I think there could be a tendency for people today, even though there's so much going on. We got this grand trine kite pattern, grand square, right? There's so much going on. There's still a tendency where people may feel very alone in their suffering. And now we're in second decan Scorpio. So it's Piscean. Very easy to get down during this decan, right? Because the way that Pisces works, it either takes you to sort of the top of the tree and takes you to, the sort of the, to heaven, right? The heights of God, or it takes you down into hell. It's just the nature of Pisces. So when you're in that decan with Scorpio, there can be, I think, a greater desire for escapism, to feel like, well, I'm all alone here in my suffering. You're not alone in your suffering. Trust me. There are plenty of people out there that are suffering, right? Plenty of people. But it has that effect. And in as much as there is this very, I would say, very disruptive and healthy expression of getting to the bottom of the mountain of bullshit, there is still this sense that people feel alone in their suffering. And it's okay, right? It is okay to feel, it's okay to feel that. Now, when the full moon comes along and begins to really go into opposition with the sun, you may not feel that way. And in fact, you may try to eat your way out of it. Note to people who are diet conscious and health conscious. This is kind of a revelatory day. Vesta is conjuncting the galactic center at 24. So we have all this Sagittarius being lined up. Wow. You know, I've talked at length about authenticity and how it's a very misunderstood word. Like sometimes assholes are very authentic. They are. They're authentically assholes. And maybe that's what they're supposed to be. Right? And we're supposed to bounce off their assholiness and learn from it. Now, is that who they are at the core level? I don't know. Maybe at their core level, they're a divine spark just like everybody else. But we play different roles in this lifetime. Joe Stalin was being authentic. Am I right? Like he wasn't trying to be anybody else but Joe Stalin. There was nothing inauthentic about him. So this is another kind of carrier wave, is this authenticity, this idea of being, because when you get into Sagittarius, that's where we go with it. It's like that John Lennon song, give me the truth, all I want is the truth. Well, today is one of those days where are people ready to handle the truth? That's where we get into that Chiron moon conjunction. It could even be a positive truth. You could say to somebody, hey, you know, I really think you're great at this, or you do this really well. And they may take it the wrong fucking way. Don't worry about it. Don't get attached to it. We've got this Venus inconjunct going on with Saturn and Neptune. No good deed goes unpunished. As much as we want to be harmonious with our relationships today, things can be a little bumpy. Get through it. Get through it. And I would say the best thing to do is if you fucked up, own up to it. Don't over own up to it, but own up to it. That's what I would say. Okay, let's get into the. By the way, I'm serious about this Trump thing. Something big is going to happen with Trump in about 3 weeks. When Mars, transiting Mars, hits his natal eclipse moon, it's scandal. There's something scandalous coming with Trump. And I'm not going to do a 15 today because there's something I'm working on, and I'm going to stretch it out over 2 days, and I can't just throw stuff at the wall because what I'm trying to unearth here takes a little bit more effort, and so part of today will be devoted to that. It's a big topic, and it requires some research. So I'm taking 15 off. You'll get 15 tomorrow and the next day, and then on Friday, of course, we have the great Russ Winter, who'll be here with us on YouTube. Okay, let's get into the star of the day, shall we? Our True Hemp Science star of the day is none other than Mr. All right, Matthew McConaughey, the Texas Longhorn Hook'em super fan. And of course, this is brought to you by True Hemp Science. Let me hit the banner. There we go. Banner up. Okay. So when you go to True Hemp Science, all you got to do is spend $100 and type in 15MINS, and you will get the goodie bag. And in the goodie bag, you will get more likely one of these little packets of gummies and a couple of vials of stuff, and you'll be a happy camper. A happy camper. Plus, you'll be getting your product. $150 more gets you free shipping. There's always a 30-day money-back guarantee. And I can't say enough about Chris's products, and neither can people who've tried them. There are numerous people in chat who have used his products, and they've been lifesavers. So check out True Hemp Science. 15MINS is your code, and $150 more gets you free shipping. So there you go. The True Hemp Science star of the day. So Matthew McConaughey is an interesting character. He was born in Uvalde, Texas. Matthew McConaughey's father was an oil man. He comes from money. And what I think is interesting about his chart is, when you're young, the son is the father. And when you get older, when you hit 7, the father becomes Saturn. Right? That's how that works. The son is the father until you're 7. And when you're 7, the father becomes Saturn, because it's the first Saturn square, and discipline sets in, and you're no longer generally wrestling around on the floor. So when we look at the father here and the conjunction with Neptune, Neptune rules oil, right? Those are his roots right there. Them's the roots. And one of the things about McConaughey also is that Neptune is really good for acting. And that's what he became. He didn't start off as an actor. What's interesting about his chart is once he graduated from high school, he actually moved to Australia for a couple of years. And you can see this in his chart, right? He has Mars in Aquarius in the 9th house. So he did kind of a reverse Mel Gibson. And he wanted to go out and see the big wide world, right? So he went to Australia for a few years. And what's interesting is that he wound up marrying eventually. We'll get into his college life. He made a movie when he was in college. He got interested in making movies. He married, let's get into his love life over here. He married a woman from Brazil. He married a Brazilian woman. So here we have Venus conjunct Jupiter, Jupiter being the ruler of the 9th house, right? And this is love. And he married somebody from another country and another culture. See how that works? Now, I think Matthew McConaughey has a temper. I think it's a slow burn, but he's got a temper. And I would not want to piss him off. And what's really interesting, again, we'll talk about Saturn over here. Again, Saturn being the father after the age of 7. And it's leaning right into that 12th house, right? And the 12th house is Pisces. And again, we're talking about oil. So McConaughey's got a Sun-Mars square. And he's going to basically do his own thing, right? And he became an actor, which I think is very true notey in Pisces. And then, of course, he's got Sun, Neptune also trining his true node. Neptune, Sun conjunctions are really good for him. He play in a lot of the roles he plays kind of an everyday guy. And he's also played a preacher, right? Like he was a preacher in that movie Contact with Jodie Foster. He was sort of a Joel Osteen kind of character, very Sun Neptune. Dallas Buyers Club, very Sun Neptune. He actually had to lose a ton of weight and he lost his collagen. He hasn't really looked the same since then, has he? I can tell you right now, his mother and his family life are extremely important to him. Very, very important. When he was, the story about how he got his acting start in Dazed and Confused was he was at a bar in Austin, and there was a guy who was involved in casting and was part of the crew. And McConaughey shows up at this bar. He's going to UT, and he is with this very good-looking woman. In fact, in high school, he was incredibly popular. He was voted best-looking guy. I mean, Matthew McConaughey hit the gene pool lottery, and he also kind of hit, like, he did not grow up poor. I can tell you that right now. He did not grow up poor. So he's at this bar, and it's very third housey, right? Like very third house. I think of bars as being very third house, like Cheers. You know, the local bar, everybody knows your name. You go down there, and it's the water, and very third house. And he's got his part of fortune in Leo. And Leo and Pisces are the two signs that I believe rule acting. And he goes there and he starts this conversation with this guy. They're probably buying each other shots of tequila. And this guy tells him that he's working on this movie. The movie is Dazed and Confused. So he says, look, we're trying to find somebody for this role. And why don't you come on out tomorrow? So McConaughey ties one on with the casting director. And the role is Wooderson. So he shows up as Wooderson. And he's got to figure out, you know, how to get into that character. And he figures it out. And he's so good at it that they give him more roles. And he winds up having kind of a on-set feud with one of the other actors who sees McConaughey cutting into his lines. So there's his part of fortune. He goes to a bar in Austin. He meets an older guy. There's Vesta. And the guy probably even picked up the bar tab. Although who knows, McConaughey probably had some money. But that's where it all starts for him. It's a very third house operation, right? But he's been married to the same woman, no divorce, no scandal. And while he's doing Dazed and Confused, his oil man father dies, right? So they actually allowed him to step away from this. So this guy, he gets his big break, right? He gets his big break, and he's in this movie, and it's going to change his life. But in a very Scorpion kind of fashion, his father dies. And I think it probably allowed him to really appreciate this moment and this break, right? Like he had to tend to things, and he came back and he finished shooting, and he dealt with his father's past. It's such a Scorpionic thing, right? And even this idea of the son being the father when he's young, and then he reaches sort of this new plateau or platform in his life. And his father is like, okay, you got there, I'm gone. And that Saturn just leans right into that 12th house. You know, I was thinking about trying to figure out like when he might have walked into that bar, and not more than a week after he started to shoot the movie that his father passes away, and sets him up basically like, this is it. Well, all right. And Wooderson has become permanently burned into our brains. I think the Gemini rising is very also much akin, being the ruler of the third house, very much akin to him being able to be nimble and take advantage of opportunities. And also being able to shapeshift a bit. Do you remember there was a story where I think it might have been where he met his wife, but I think he was in Brazil, and I think he was high as fuck, and he was playing bongos on the beach naked. That was like such a Mars and Aquarius ninth house activity, like a little too much. You know what I mean? But I think he's a he's a very pleasant fellow. Although I do think he does too many ads. Like, do you really, really need to do an ad for fucking AI medicine? Like, how much money do you need? I saw a woman who did a YouTube video on sellouts, and he feels a bit like a sellout. Like the Lincoln stuff, okay, no problem. I get it. Car ad. I can see you driving a Lincoln, right? Or his bourbon ads or whatever it is, tequila, whatever it is he sells. But that stuff he's doing with Woody Harrelson is just really fucking embarrassing. It's almost like a humiliation ritual, I have to say. Matt, cut it out. You don't need it. You don't need it. All right, there's your True Hemp Science star of the day. Oh, and again, even with Sagittarius on the 7th house cusp, right? Marries a woman from where? Another country. It's all over his chart. He was destined. She on those bongos naked. She said, I like that beat. Oh, he looks like he could use a hug. Let me help you out. Let me take you home and straighten you up. All right, there you go. That's it. Thanks for being here. We have economically, judiciously gotten into the weather and gotten out. I'll see you tomorrow for the weather. I'll see you tomorrow for 15. Have yourselves a fantastic day. Use your head in order to discern what's real, your heart to set what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. You are you. Take care of it. Take care of yourself. Bye for now.